The sun hung low over the school's football field, staining the grass with streaks of molten gold as students drifted off after practice. For most, it was an ordinary evening. For Ava, the red-haired cheerleader who always stayed behind to perfect her routines, it was a necessary ritual, one that kept her focused, disciplined, and grounded. She wasn't like the others who practiced for applause. She practiced for silence, for control, for strength. Her father, a former elite combat trainer, had taught her the value of precision, patience, and calm in the face of chaos. She carried those lessons deep within her like an unspoken oath. But the football players who swaggered across the field didn't know any of that. To them, she was just a small, determined cheerleader, easy to underestimate, easier to mock. It started with snickers, then comments muttered under their breath, then louder remarks about her height, her frame, and her supposed place on the sidelines. Ava ignored them at first, as her father had taught her, observe, don't react. But that evening the whispers were heavier, the tones sharper, the intentions darker. The biggest one, Mason, the team's arrogant star quarterback, stepped forward with the casual cruelty of someone used to winning every fight without throwing a punch. His friends trailed behind him, smirking like shadows. Mason sneered at Ava, circling her as if she were prey. Still trying to impress the coach? He called loudly. Still pretending you matter out here? His group laughed. Ava remained still. Mason hated that. He stepped closer, invading her space, wanting a reaction. Come on. Cheer, girl, he taunted. Smile. Dance. Do whatever it is you little dolls do. Ava kept her stance firm, eyes locked straight ahead. The calm her father taught her didn't break, but something shifted inside her. Tonight felt different. Tonight, they wouldn't let her walk away. The air turned thick around her as Mason placed a hand on her shoulder, gripping it just a little too tightly. Ava stiffened but didn't step back. The way he touched her wasn't playful. It was claiming, mocking, testing how far he could push before she snapped. The boys behind him circled slightly, forming a loose semicircle the way wolves tighten around their meal. Look at her, one of them murmured. She's shaking. But Ava wasn't shaking. She was measuring distances, foot placements, angles of potential strikes, just as her father taught her, but she gave no sign. Mason leaned closer, his breath hot with arrogance. What's wrong? Daddy not here to protect you? That word hit deeper than he realized. Her father's absence wasn't weakness. It was the reason she trained. He had spent years teaching her to walk the world strong enough to defend herself when no one else would. But these boys, swollen with ego and size, didn't see strength unless it looked like theirs. One of them stepped closer, laughing, nudging her side with the tip of his cleat, as if she were nothing more than a toy. Ava inhaled deeply, a slow, steady breath, the kind that precedes a storm. Walk away, she said quietly. Her voice wasn't desperate. It was a warning. The boys froze for a moment, unsure whether they heard challenge or fear. Mason tilted his head, smirking. Or what? He said. You'll cheer at us? The others burst into laughter. Ava's hands curled into fists at her sides, not in panic, but in discipline. Her father always said, never strike first, but you may finish it. Mason poked her forehead with one finger. Didn't you hear me? He said louder. I said, and that was a push too far. Time didn't slow. Ava simply sped up, her training awakened like a reflex she hadn't summoned in years. Before Mason realized she'd moved, Ava trapped his wrist, twisted sharply, and dropped her weight, sending him stumbling forward with a strangled curse. He wasn't hurt, just shocked. The team froze. Mason recovered in 2 stumbling steps, spinning to face her, eyes wide with confusion and barely contained rage. The hell was that? He barked. Ava didn't answer. Her father's teachings echoed through her mind. Stay aware. Stay calm. Stay ahead. Mason lunged. The moment he shifted his weight, Ava sidestepped, redirecting his momentum with effortless precision. He hit the turf hard, rolling to a stop. The other players surged forward, but skidded to a halt when she raised a single hand. Don't, she said, voice cold as winter steel. Her stance wasn't flashy, not something they'd seen in movies. It was small, compact, purposeful. A fighter's stance. The boys exchanged looks. Confusion crept into their bravado. Mason got up again, furious, humiliated, and unwilling to look weak in front of his teammates. "You think that was something?" he growled, wiping dirt from his arms. "You think you can take me?" Ava didn't blink. "I don't think," she said. "I know." The words chilled the air. Mason rushed her again, faster this time. And again, she used his speed against him, redirecting his arm and sending him face first into grass. His teammates didn't laugh now. They stood silent, staring at the girl they'd underestimated for far too long. The shift had begun. They just didn't know how far it would go. Humiliation transformed Mason's anger into something crueler. He staggered upright, chest heaving, eyes bloodshot. "Get her," he snarled at his teammates. But they hesitated, not out of mercy, out of fear. They'd seen the control in Ava's movements, the precision in her strikes. She wasn't guessing or relying on luck. She was trained. Still, one of the bigger players stepped forward. Tyson, built like a brick wall. "I'll do it," he muttered, more for his own pride than Mason's command. He approached Ava cautiously, hands raised like he was handling a wild animal. Ava watched every muscle in his body, reading him like a page in an old book. Tyson lunged with a grappling move, aiming to pin her arms. Ava shifted, ducked under his reach, and struck his center balance, a quick, sharp movement to the solar plexus. Tyson dropped to one knee, gasping. Before he could recover, Ava swept his legs cleanly, letting him fall gently to avoid real harm. She stepped back. "I don't want to hurt you," she said calmly. "Any of you." The boys stared at Tyson sprawled on the grass, clutching his stomach. Mason felt power slipping through his fingers. "She's just one girl," he shouted desperately. But no one wanted to step forward next. Ava hadn't struck out of fury. Every motion was efficient, controlled, deliberate. It unnerved them more than brute force ever could, because it meant she could have done far worse. She simply chose not to. Fear spread through the group like a cold wind. Mason was losing his authority, his image, his pride, and that, more than anything, made him dangerous. Desperation twisted Mason's face as he charged her again, ignoring strategy, ignoring form. Just rage exploding in motion. Ava remained still, watching, waiting. Her father had always said, "The angrier they are, the easier they fall." Mason swung wildly. Ava blocked, stepped inside his reach, and executed a move so smooth it looked choreographed. A controlled joint lock followed by a precise sweep that planted Mason flat on his back. This time, she didn't let him rise immediately. She placed a knee beside his ribs, not pinning him but making it clear she could. His chest heaved with fury and humiliation. "Stop," she said quietly, "before you get hurt for real." Mason froze, not because he feared her, but because he finally realized he should. For the first time, he saw not a cheerleader, but a fighter shaped by discipline sharper than his bravado. The field fell silent except for his ragged breathing. One of the players finally whispered, "Dude, she could have broken something." Ava stood, giving Mason space to rise on his own. She stepped back with respect, not arrogance. The boys exchanged glances, confused, shaken, almost ashamed. They had mocked her, cornered her, pushed her, but she hadn't retaliated with cruelty. She had defended herself with restraint. And restraint was the mark of someone who understood power far beyond muscle. Mason got up slowly, brushing grass from his uniform with trembling hands. His pride was broken in places he didn't understand. But something in his expression shifted. Not fear, not anger. Something closer to reluctant respect. The kind born only after being defeated by someone who didn't need to hurt you to win.